Can I blow your mind real quick?
Yeah, absolutely. You can blow my mind, Odie. You can blow my mind any day of the week.
Okay. So when people invest into banks, right?
Yes.
Say you put $1,000 in
Uh-huh.
a savings account.
Yes.
You get 2% interest.
Yes.
See, what people
Annually.
make the mistake is instead of doing 1,000 in one savings account, do 500 in two savings account. You just doubled your interest. But let me take it a step further because I can tell I'm blowing your mind right now. What if you did 10 savings account at $100? You just 10 times your interest. But here's the thing. Here's what people should be doing and what people aren't doing. This is what's wrong with people, Kevin. 1,000 bank accounts, interest on $1, millionaire in 2 days. And seen. And that was every finance podcast I've ever seen clips from of people saying the dumbest shit about how to save money.
Yeah, none of that made
You're
sense
welcome.
to me, man.
Exactly. And that is verbatim what I heard from a finance podcast.
I thought you were going to blow my mind with like a real fact and where there was going to be a bit off that, but instead you blew my mind with stupidity.
Exactly. I told you it wasn't worth it.
All right, well, you can't blow my mind any day of the week like that. That was some sloppy brain, sir.
You already said, hey, that is, I swear to God, that is straight from a finance podcast.
3, 2, 1. Perfect.
I think that actually was perfect.
Yeah, it was. It was so on point, man. Wait till you hear it in the episode. It's going to be great.
Oh, shit.
Welcome back to the Unpop Podcast.
What do you...
It's
why'd
a
you stop?
sick, slick, non-stop, hot topic dropping, mic flopping, gas tank popping podcast. See, I'm doing the bit. See, I'm doing the thing. I got better. I'm expanding it every time, Odie. You don't even know where this is gonna go.
I don't.
Yeah,
I really
flash
don't.
fast, rock'em sock'em, robotin'. I'm just like a bad white rapper right now. I can't.
You sound like the scene from Scary Movie 1 when the guy raps and he's supposed to be the 8 Mile scene as Eminem.
Yes!
I'm a white boy, but my neck is red. I put Miracle Whip on my Wonder Bread. That's you.
That is me.
That's you.
I
used
am.
to have that whole rap memorized. Don't ask me why.
My rap name is Big Miracle Whip.
That's awesome, actually. Mine's Spicy Mayo.
Ooh, spicy mayo. I like that. Is it sriracha spicy or is it like proper hot sauce spicy?
It's like proper hot sauce spicy.
Ooh, you got
That's
me.
how I roll.
I'm in on that. Odie, welcome back to the Unpop Podcast. We should introduce ourselves. I'm your host, as dubbed by my co-host, Odie Matthews. My name is Kevin Miner. With me, as always, is... Oh, wait. Hold on. Kevin Miner. He, him. With me, as always, is...
Odie Matthews. They, themmer.
Yeah! And today, we're going to jump right into what we wanted to talk about, which is the fact that Odie Matthews is my favorite singular they, them in the entire world. No,
That
seriously.
is true.
You are. And I really I remember we talked about this a few different times, and I feel like now is a really good time to do it. I feel like, we both talked about it, like it's really interesting to have what I would label myself as is like a modern, relatively unorthodox Christian, and I don't know how you would describe. How would you describe yourself in relation to the description I just gave?
Oh, well, I'd call myself an atheist above everything else because
Yeah.
And it's more, for me, it's just I don't care.
Yeah.
Like, plain and simple, I just don't care.
Oh, all right. Well, that is more of an apathist, I guess. You have apathy toward. I made that word up right now. I just put an is on the end of apathy.
You threw me off. I was like, I've never heard that before.
Well, it's because I made it up. But that's how all words happen, right? So apathy is the act of having no emotion toward a thing, right? So if you don't care about isms, then you would be an apathist, right?
Makes sense.
Makes sense. It's not a real word. You won't find it in the
It's a good
dictionary.
word.
If you use it in a conversation, good chances are if anyone has an IQ over 80 around you that they're probably going to make fun of it. But it's a word now.
So wait, that means my IQ must be under 80 because you said it and I was like, never heard that word before.
Yeah, that's
Wasn't
right.
a word.
Dude, can I be honest? I read a lot. I consider myself a relative academic. But I don't know what I've never taken the time to understand what the good quantitative number is for an IQ. So for me, it could be anywhere from like 75 to 130. Like anywhere from 75 to 130 sounds relatively smart to me.
I'm probably in between there, I think.
Which I think both of us are somewhere in that very gracious window that I've just given. But really, the reason that I wanted to get into this is you and I we have a great relationship. You are one of the first people who came out to me as being non-binary, and I, as someone who, once again, considering myself a relative academic, only had questions. And when I have questions, they come from a good place. They're not from like I'm trying to prove anything. I was legitimately curious. I wanted to know what that meant for you, what that meant for me, and what that meant for like how we approach language going forward. And over the course of the past, you've been out for about 2 years, right?
Almost 3.
Yeah, so over the course of almost 3 years, I've still called you he or him probably a good 50 to 100 times because the language, as it would turn out, if you don't learn a new function of language until you're in your 30s, it's a little hard to get to stick, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, no, 100%.
I actually, real quick before we get into it, I had an interesting conversation yesterday. So I'm in a Magic the Gathering Discord server for people who produce another podcast called Voice of All. What they did was live audio dramas. Well, not live. They did audio dramas of Magic the Gathering stories, which is amazing. And Magic the Gathering's awesome and super inclusive, and they already like have non-binary characters and stuff. But someone said they and then used the conjugative singular afterward for wearing clothing. So they said they and then something to the effect of wears. And then there was a discussion about how to be most grammatically correct. And as it would turn out, because they is technically still a non-gendered pronoun, you would say they wear, not they wears, even though you're referring to a singular. And it was a fun conversation. And my favorite was somebody in the Discord then said, well, why not just use both and not care and commit grammar crimes? And I was like, I like that idea.
Yeah, me too.
I like that as a
Grammar
concept.
crimes are the good kind of crimes.
Yeah. I like that as a concept.
Yeah, me too.
But so about 3 years ago, you came out to our friend group and everyone who was closest to you as non-binary.
I did a little weird. I came out to everybody that was close to me, and then like a day later, I was like, you know what? Fuck it, I'm just gonna tell everybody.
Yeah.
I just kind of came out on my socials and everything.
Which is good.
Yeah.
I like that you did that.
Me too.
I personally, I remember like, I think you told Matt before me, Matt Pfeiffer. So Matt told me, and I just like immediately I was like, okay, well I was like, so what does that mean? And Matt was like, well, it's just they, them pronouns. And I was like, oh, cool, easy, right?
That's it.
Like that was,
yeah.
And then you and I talked about it. I was like, okay, cool. So what does that mean for you? So I kind of want to walk back through that conversation that we had and do it again. And maybe it'll even be a little updated.
Reenactment.
Yeah. And well, now that we've known each other even longer, maybe you'll have more to add to it, or I'll have a little extra experience with it and we'll be able to comment on it a little more. What was it like when you came out as non-binary, and how did you know that you were non-binary? Because I think that's a big question that a lot of people don't even seek to answer, and then they end up having confusion as to why someone would call themselves non-binary.
all I see is a cat tail behind your head.
He's chilling, man. He wants attention. All right.
So it's been an interesting journey. So I'll go back even further because I told you this yesterday,
Mm-hmm.
but at the time of recording, I am currently working on a YouTube video, kind of a little bit similar for my channel about coming out, and it's more of that video is more of this is why I came out, this is why I feel the way, if you're watching my channel, you can expect, I expect you to respect my pronouns and, respect me. So that video is more of I don't know what you call it, more of like what's the word I'm looking for? Not like a statement, but more of a reminder.
I would say like an interactive piece of publishing.
Yeah,
right.
Because I want it to feel more like you're in a room, like we're about to have a conversation right now. That's why I want that video to feel like. So I'll go even a little further back and give you a little more context that ties into what you're going to talk about later on this episode.
Yeah.
So I was raised in the South in a very devout, far-right Christian household. And so when I was a young kid, I knew that something was different because I would, like, and I say young kid, when I was like middle school, high school, I knew that I liked boys and girls, but obviously taught my entire life that if you are gay or if you're bi or if you're any of that, you're going straight to an inferno, basically, which
yeah.
I get that's some sections of religious groups are going to have those ideas. But so for me, it was really difficult because I went all of middle school, all of high school, having crushes on both boys and girls, and then also at the same time feeling so different from everybody around me.
Yeah.
And a big factor of that for me too was I was homeschooled. So I had nobody except for the people that were in my family who believed the things that, they told me I couldn't be.
Yeah.
I had no outlet. So it wasn't until I went through the Marine Corps and kind of started to slowly feel like I could be a little bit more myself, but still very standoffish because military, homophobia, super fun. But it wasn't until I started dating my current partner and they went to an art school. And when I went there for the first time to like hang out with them and like see them and everything, they had a roommate that was trans, they had friends that were non-binary, and it was my first experience in that realm because up until that point, trans, bi, gay, non-binary, all of that to me was, I was told you
don't do it.
And all this time, I say I was raised in a Christian household, but as I said, like religion's never really been something that I've been interested in. It's always just felt like a story to me. It's never really been something that I felt really strongly about. So I didn't care about the religious side of things, but because I cared so much about saving face, because my parents were heavily involved with the church and, everything to them. And they told me growing up that, we were held to a higher standard because we were a member of the church and my dad worked for the church. So when I slowly started to get integrated with Goose's friend, my partner, who is non-binary, and talking to these people that felt this way, I was like, that is literally what I felt like my entire life. Like, it wasn't until I was about 23, 24 years old that I was even able to realize that what it was I was feeling was all the things that I was told to hate. And that was a very interesting crossroads.
Yeah.
But ultimately, we, when Goose graduated, we moved out to Utah.
Yep.
And at that point, my relationship with my parents had become, and I'll be open about it, my relationship with my parents had become very strained because I left religion and was starting to do things that, were frowned upon according to their religion.
Yeah.
And so when I was in Utah, just one day I just was like, you know what? This is just how I feel and this is just who I am. And I had a couple conversations with Goose leading up to it being like, I feel this way and I don't really know if it's like, I was talking to people that were non-binary because Goose is non-binary too, and it's really funny because at the same time I was struggling with trying to figure out if I should come out or if it was me, they were doing the exact same thing. So like when I came out, like shortly after, they were like, yep, me too. And it was like more of like we came out together kind of.
Which is
really
awesome.
Yeah, so lucky.
What a good sign that like you guys were kind of meant to be partners,
We're a they-them household causing mayhem. That's a shirt I want. If anybody wants to send merch, I want the Millhouse shirt from Simpsons, and it says a they-them causing mayhem. And I think that shirt is perfect.
Oh, I actually love
But
that. All right.
so anyways, now catching up, there's the backstory because
Mm-hmm.
you and Matt and everybody already knew all that. So
Mm-hmm.
this for everybody else out there. So yeah, when I realized I wanted to come out, at first it was, oh my God, there's so many people in my life that are gonna not talk to me anymore. My best friend all through childhood was, devout Christian as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a mixture. You know, as you mentioned, I came out to like close friends and family first. Really, I didn't come out to any family. I actually came out to more friends than family. The only family member I came out to right away was my sister Rachel. She's just the one I'm closest with. The rest of my siblings, I was just like, they're not going to get it. And some of my siblings still don't know because I just know, and my parents don't know because this is something that if they ever found out, I mean, at this point, it doesn't matter because I don't. My relationship with my parents is gone. It's non-existent
Yeah.
because of other things.
Yeah.
So it's interesting because I thought that coming out would cause disruption and cause me to lose a lot of relationships, but really, it didn't. Like almost everybody that I knew personally that like saw my Instagram post or I told personally, like you, Matt, my buddy Mark, some other people, they were all like, okay. Like that's fine.
Yeah.
Like and you know what? And I used to people used to ask me like what reaction do you want like when people find that out? And it's like, what do you mean? Like there shouldn't really be a reaction. That reaction is what you should be. If someone's like, "Hey, I'm gay," you should be like, "Okay,
Yeah.
cool." But now,
That's
like
it.
there should be no and I mean maybe for some people they want and I'm not saying that this is everybody, but for me like I don't want people to be like, "Oh my god, like, what can I do for you?" or like, like do you want to talk about it? It's like, "No, like I already did all that.
Yeah.
I'm just letting you know. Like
Yeah.
I already went through all the background stuff of talking about it and figuring it out,
Uh-huh.
which luckily nobody did that to me. But I have friends that people did that to them, and it's like pretty annoying.
Yeah.
Which makes sense. But yeah, I don't know. 3 years ago when I came out, I had no idea what would happen, and honestly, a majority of the hate that I get are just random. And I was telling you about this yesterday, but like
they're randoms.
just random comments on a YouTube channel, and like I love to tell this story. I told you, I'll tell everybody
yeah.
for the pod.
Yeah.
I made a video. It was talking about boots, just boots, and I threw one line in there, just being like, no matter if you're a man or a woman, or if you identify as neither, like me, these boots are gonna be good. That was it, and I got overwhelming support on that, and some people being like, I had actually a couple comments being like, I love the inclusion of like all the genders, like that's really nice.
Yeah, why not?
And then of course there's a couple people that were like, oh my god, wow, you just ruined your whole video talking about gender. And it's like, dude, it was one sentence. Like, what do you mean talking about gender? I just said if you're any of them, like if you're any of the genders, like if that offends you, just pretend like I just said two instead of three, like, or not even three. I said two and then one that's not a gender. Come on.
I like how you said it yesterday when you first told me the story. Like you're so much of a snowflake that like
that was my
that's
reply.
actually a really good reply because that is the type of person that would call another person snowflake. And you know who we're talking about? We're talking about someone who leans to the right and would consider themselves conservative, and that's fairly obvious. Like I don't have to lump every conservative into that. And I'm not saying every conservative.
And it's not
does
all
that,
of them.
but
it's not all of
there
them.
are a lot of people, and I would say the vast majority of them identify that way. Speaking of identification, and it turns out that they are very much snowflakes. I want to take part of what you're talking about, and I really want to put a good lens on why I think that you've gotten a good response from so much of our friend group, and it's because a lot of us, I'm gonna like give a serious pat on the back to a lot of our parents, and no, seriously, because that's what it really comes down to, man. I mean,
that's cool.
You were explaining how you felt growing up and how like your parents only had this one perspective and it was relatively limited, and I didn't have that, luckily. Like my dad was just like, respect people, right? Like that's what my dad taught me, was respect people. That's the biggest lesson he ever taught me, and it's gotten me everywhere in life. Like respect is more than just like I respect you, you respect me. Like it's not just a power thing, it's a common decency thing, it's a common courtesy thing, it's something that happens on a day-to-day basis. And I think my dad had that perspective because he was a firefighter. So like it doesn't matter who you are, your house can catch fire. It doesn't matter, like doesn't matter what gender you are. It doesn't matter like where you live. It doesn't matter what background it is that, you know, you come from. If your house catches fire, that's a horrible fucking thing. And he has to show up and treat you like a person, you know, like, and at that point, that's what you are. You're a person who's experiencing tragedy, right? And so I think that gave him a good perspective to just be like, just respect everybody, because we all can go through real shitty things at any moment in time. And then my mom, I was very, very lucky to have the mom that I had, in that she was just she had a very broad spectrum of how she saw the world and how she accepted the world. And I remember the whole conversation about gay people lasted 30 seconds with my mom. Like, she had a friend named Matt. Matt had a boyfriend. I, as a kid, took notice, right? Like, I was like, hey, is that Matt's boyfriend? And like, my mom said yes. And I said, why? And she, you know, because I'm a kid, I don't know. Like, she goes, well, you know how like some boys like girls? And I go, yeah. And she goes, well, some boys like boys. And like, that was it. The whole thing. And I was like, oh, cool. Great. Like, it was perfect and simple, and she didn't go into any explanation over what was right or wrong about any of it. And that was it. And that Matt was gay, you know? And then growing up, I remember at one point just being like, oh, my little brother's gay. Like, I could tell, you know, because when you live with someone, especially as you're watching them develop into the person that they're going to be, you begin to take insight onto how they're going to be as a person. And I remember, like, even at a very young age, I remember telling my parents, like, hey, I think Curtis is gay. And their response was like, well, let him decide that. And obviously, you know, I never called him gay. I like, you know, I never like made fun of him. I never did anything that would like make him think that I thought down of that. And I just let him be. And then eventually, finally, and this is actually a really funny story, he came out of the closet. And we had all known for a long time.
I remember you told me this story.
It's a good story because
I remember that story.
He got caught smoking weed. And he didn't know how to come out of the closet, but he also didn't want my dad and stepmom finding out that he smoked weed, because his mom, my stepmom, who we all lovingly call Mama Bear, she doesn't like smoking weed. So, like, when he got caught, he obviously, like, it was a very frightening moment. I think he was crying a little bit. Like, he told the story to my brother Colin a little more in depth than me. But he was like, I just don't know how to tell you guys that I'm gay. So I'm stressed out and I'm smoking weed. And my parents' response immediately was, it's okay that you're gay. Smoke as much weed as you want. Like, and he was like, yes, double win. You know, like,
double win.
two birds with one stone for sure. Two birds stoned at once, if you may.
Lucky man.
But yeah, so like, I was very lucky to grow up with that. And then when non-binary became a thing, I was like, you know, like many other, I'm gonna I'm cisgendered. I am he, him pronouns. Like, every day, if I even wake up with the question, it's pretty quickly verified. Like, oh yeah, still he, him. Yep, still cis.
Yeah. Well, so you mentioned something that I do want to. There's two things that I do want to talk about since we're talking about it, and one is, and I know that the word choice wasn't intentional, but non-binary became a thing. That's one argument that I've had with a lot of people.
Sorry.
About how long.
Yeah.
I know what you meant. That's why I was like,
yes.
I know you know this, but I wanted to
non-binary
elaborate.
came across my proverbial desk. All right, go.
Well, I was just saying, because like, there is a lot of, and it bothers me because certain people, if you try to argue with them about this stuff, you know, it's all fake. It doesn't exist, even though there's proof. But, you know, just transgender alone, you can date that back to early 1800s.
Yes.
Easily. But even further than that with non-binary is, I think where people get confused on non-binary, and I'm hoping maybe this is an opportunity for me to hopefully shed a little bit more light on what it is.
Yeah.
But it's, non-binary at the end of the day is just simply, you feel like a guy, right? Like, you feel like a man, you feel manly, you feel like a male, you feel like that fits you. Like,
okay. Yeah.
The definition
you're talking
of
about
male.
Me.
Yeah, I'm talking about you directly. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%.
You would feel like society, male, that fits you. What society says a male is, what a male is supposed to be, how it's supposed to feel, all of that, that's you. Like,
every
you're
day.
Like, yep, that makes sense.
Yep.
And I would say that people that feel like a woman or female, or, you know, use he or she, her, they feel like society, you know, they fit that, what society says it is, right?
Yes.
And I use that word society for a reason, because society, like the difference between gender and sex is where people get misconstrued on non-binary.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that my sex, I have a penis. I know I have a penis.
Mm-hmm.
Like I know that I was born a male. But as
Mm-hmm.
far as gender and feeling a male or a female, whether it's society telling me to feel that way or what society says it's supposed to feel like, what a textbook says it's supposed to feel like,
Yeah.
I've never felt like that. I've never felt like a male. I've never felt like a female.
Okay.
I've never felt like either of those is who I am as a person, is what I feel like, what I identify as, all of that.
Yeah.
And it's hard to explain that to some people because they're like, well, like there's sometimes I don't feel like a male. It's like, okay, that's cool. But for me, it's 24/7.
Yeah.
Like you can wake up and maybe like if you're married, right? And like I see this stuff on TikTok sometimes where like a guy might paint their nails and they'll be like, "Oh my God, I feel like such a woman right now." It's like that doesn't like that's a brief moment. You know what I mean? So for me, it's always a struggle to try to explain to people that it's like I don't feel like either of those, and that doesn't change anything.
No.
You know what I mean? But even further than that, the history of non-binary, like if you can trace it back, and I've talked to people about it, and I've done some research.
Okay.
Native American tribes, like way before colonists were even here,
Yeah.
there is no records of them ever having male and female. There's no like in some of their languages, there's no male or female like pronouns. There's just people, and that's because it wasn't until society became more developed and things started to progress further.
Yes.
That people started to realize that, because if you think about it, if you're a small tribe in the middle of nowhere and you barely speak the language that you speak, these aren't civilizations that are coming up with the construct of male, female, you're a male, so this is your role, female, this is your role. Like that's just not a thing in society, and that's not in every society. It is in societies, don't get me wrong, and it is throughout history, but just as it's throughout history that is a thing, it's also throughout history that in some areas it's not a thing. And I've argued with people about this. Non-binary is not something that just came popular 20 years ago or 10 years ago. And the same thing with transgender, because people lump all of that together, because technically non-binary falls under the umbrella of transgender. But
yeah,
it's funny because people think that just because it's become more popular, that means it didn't exist earlier. But the reason it's become more quote unquote popular is because now we are finally at a time in the year 2023 where you can kind of be that way and not immediately get fucking murdered. Like that's just it. Like if you were gay in the 60s, is a death sentence.
Well, and we're very lucky to live in a time where now people can be comfortable enough to say, "Hey, I don't actually identify as either of these." And specifically, what we're talking about is the what I would refer to as the performative nature of gender, right? Like there are effeminate men, there are masculine men, there are effeminate females, there are masculine females. We know this, and they all have pronouns that they prefer. And if you haven't met someone yet, and you don't know their pronouns, you already use the word they. You use the non-gendered pronoun when talking about, especially if it's like a name that could be either classic, let's call it classical, like at this point.
Yeah.
Either classically defined or retro gender, right? Or whatever you want to say.
Yeah.
But like, if you don't know whether someone's male or female or whatever else they might be, then you have the opportunity to say they, like Ryan or Jamie, like a lot of those names. Kelly can be a guy or a girl. So you would say, "Oh, who are they?" You would just say it instinctively, Or
even sometimes just like, what do they do?
But then
like, even with people that you know.
And what's funny is we do it automatically often. And then as soon as it seems like as soon as the comfort level was there for people to then say, "No, I actually prefer that one," all of a sudden it became a talking point. And I would credit a lot of that to the notion of identity politics, which is a bigger problem that we have to deal with on a whole, and we don't have to get into that on this episode. But Simone de Beauvoir, who's a really like what a beautiful, amazing French philosopher from the 20th century, who was in a very like she and Jean-Paul Sartre were in a relationship together, and Simone de Beauvoir actually wrote a really awesome piece on how gender is mostly performative.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, you're born with a penis, you're born with a vagina, you're born with, whatever you're born with. So biologically, you do have, like, if we're classifying ourselves, yes, you have a sex, but that is not the same thing as gender. And for us to try and make them mutually inclusive is unnatural. So being that you are born with a sex, and then sex changes. Once again, we don't have to get into that. That's a whole other topic. Yeah. What we're talking about right now is, I would say specifically, the identification of individuals within a society as it pertains to their gender.
Oh yeah. And you know what's funny is, did you see the show? And you might not have, but it was very, very popular. Did you see The Last of Us, the show that came out?
I am on episode 5.
It's very good.
Yeah.
And people love it. And you know what's funny is Bella Ramsey.
Yeah.
Non-binary, representing.
I did not know that.
Yep.
Oh, that's cool.
Yep.
Are they okay? Are they them, or are they? I know there's like 3 new pronouns too.
Ooh. Not sure. I know that they're gender fluid and they identify as they, them.
Oh, cool.
Or maybe they might even go a step further because they're in Hollywood and be they, she.
Yeah.
Which is understandable.
Whatever. I get it. I actually love the term gender fluid because it actively describes so many people I already know in life.
Right.
Like, and it's such a positive spin on the idea rather than being like, I know not everybody's gender fluid that is non-binary, but like I like the idea, or they might not be. I don't know. Actually, do you know?
Well, I mean,
I ask?
I don't think all of them are. I would consider myself leaning more towards gender fluid because there are times where I feel like, and again, this is the opposite of when people are like, sometimes I feel like a girl because I painted my nails, whereas sometimes I feel like I do briefly dip into either like male or female, but honestly, and this is interesting, I feel like I dip more into the feminine side than anything else. And
really?
That's not to say that I feel like a woman, but like I like to paint my nails. I like to do a lot of things that a lot of people would call feminine, a word I can't say correctly.
That is surprising to me because I would actually say, as a friend of yours, that I personally in my head have always classified you as more masculine, and that's interesting because maybe we just haven't spent enough time in the areas where you do feminine things. But for me, I have this image of Odie, the mountain climber, like Odie, the outdoors man, the Odie, the yeah. So in my mind,
something else that,
and that's why I would say he, him. Often for you, I would slip up and say he. I think it's like, I was listening back. I think it's like before we even hit the 4-minute mark on our first podcast, I had slipped up already and then corrected myself.
Oh yeah.
I was like he. Yeah. Oh wait, sorry. They. And I've done that for years now because as I said, my language centers are I'm still reprogramming that, and really, I really just want to like make this point. For anybody listening who is cisgender, like, we're not being asked much of. It's not asking much to change your language. It's not. It seems hard and it's uncomfortable because it's a new thing to learn, and neuroplasticity for a lot of us has set in past 25, So like, I know throwing a wrench in the works, old dog, new tricks, all that stuff, but like, it's not much to just figure out someone's pronouns. Or, and this is even better, use their proper pronouns. And here's the funny thing about saying use their proper pronouns is you have to use the non-gendered pronoun to say them plural, right? We already have the non-gendered pronouns built into our language, so you can use them. We know that we can use them. But if you can't, just use someone's name. It's fine.
Yeah. And
right? I'm never
funny.
wrong if I say Odie.
Yeah, you can't go wrong by using somebody's name instead of a pronoun.
No,
but it's
you
so
can't.
funny because there's two. So, for one, the pronoun thing has become such an incredible meme because and again, I'm not talking about everybody on this side of the political spectrum.
No.
I don't even like that it has to be a political spectrum, but there are people on the right who have now turned pronouns into a war, being like, well, my pronouns are Bible believer or ass kicker. And it's like, okay, I get what you're doing. You're trying to do something. Yeah, I've heard that. And it's like, I get that you're trying to be funny because you're like, this pronoun thing is so stupid. It's like, but do you realize how absolutely stupid you look by pretending that the English language, the thing that you get mad at when other people don't speak it in your country, you don't even understand the fundamentals of what a fucking pronoun is?
Yeah.
Well, but on top of that, speaking of pronouns, and speaking of words,
Go.
So I'm going to call this, because we come up with random segments all the time, I'm going to call this things Odie's fine with being called, and maybe other non-binary people are too.
Ooh, I like this segment. All right, give me all the things I can call you.
Okay, so if I'm being honest, and I'm not saying this is every non-binary person, but I would ask them because I think a lot of them are pretty open to these words because of the way society uses these words.
Yes.
So I get asked all the time.
Okay.
Well, I can't call you bro anymore. You can call me bro. I call my partner bro.
Yeah.
I call my dog bro.
Bro.
Everybody's bro.
All right.
Bro is gender neutral, right?
Yeah,
Same
it
with
is.
dude. Dude is gender neutral.
Yep. Dude is...
I have a couple close friends that are women. I lost my train of thought. That are
I have a couple friends that are
dude.
Women. All right. Yeah. Go ahead. All right.
Yeah, and I call them dude, and they call me dude.
Yeah.
Well,
because dude is like, hey, dude, check this out. Yeah.
Dude,
right.
what are you doing, dude?
Yeah.
Like, again, I call my partner dude.
Yeah.
Guy depends on the context. If you're saying, oh, that guy over there, I don't like that. But if you're saying,
hey guys,
there's like, hey guys, like if you're grouping a bunch of people together, that's fine. But if you're singling me out and being like that guy over there, or the bad guy, I don't like that.
Yeah,
person,
not that.
Just slot person in there.
Yep.
Man depends on the context again.
Hey man.
Sometimes, hey man, what are you doing?
I've
it's
actually.
Like, okay,
can I keep going? But I want to touch on the man when you're done.
Man is again, it depends on the context, right? If it's
I've stopped using that as much because
I'm not the biggest fan of it.
Well, I'm finding that I use it less and less because like I have maybe like a couple friends that I use it with, and that's it. And so that in that it becomes more of a circumstantial term of endearment, right? Because that's really what it is, right? It's much like the affectation dude, but it's very gender specific. So like I do have some friends that are like I would describe them as very masculine and cisgendered, he, him. So like for them, yeah, I'll use it. But I'm using it less and less in a more general sense. Go on.
I think the only time I'm okay with it is when someone's like, man, that shit was stupid. You know, like when
because they're not saying it to you. It's
it's
a colloquialism at that point. It's a function of speech. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
What other words do people ask me questions about? Honestly, I think those are the four big ones.
Can I call you booty?
Absolutely. Only
yes!
You put Taco Bell in front.
Well, I mean, that's how I shorten it. So, all right,
I know.
good.
I love it. I love it.
All right, sweet.
But yeah, those are and here's the thing, and I'll say this, and this might be a good way to end this segment to then move on to yours.
Okay.
If you know people that identify as non-binary or might be trans or maybe just have preferred pronouns.
Yeah.
Like Kevin, like you said, just be respectful. But at the end of the day, if you slip up, right, and if you use the wrong pronoun for somebody and they go, hey, oh, it's they, or hey, it's she, or whatever.
Yeah.
Just be like, okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Or if you slip up and and you correct yourself, you're going to feel like you look a little silly. You don't look silly. If anything, you look respectful because
Yeah.
you realized you were disrespectful or you said something that you shouldn't have or you misgendered somebody and then you corrected it immediately.
100%.
It's the people that let it go and they know that I'm like, you could have just corrected it.
Yeah.
Because now it's like you're ashamed that you misgendered me, but you're not you're not going to fix it?
Yeah.
Like, that's weird to me.
Yeah.
You know, if you made a mistake, you fix it.
Yep.
And it's no different. And might sound a little harsh, but I'm just saying that at the end of the day, a lot of us that use pronouns that are outside of the way we present or look, because I know I look like a dude, like that's not going to change like, anytime soon. It just made the correction or ask, or if somebody corrects you, just don't get offended, because I corrected one person, they got mad at me and I'm like, you can't get mad at me for this. Like,
yeah.
What do you mean?
Well,
but yeah,
I would add to that, and I would say we all just need to give each other a little more grace as because what's really happening is we're evolving as a society, but we're also fighting against the pull of the waves of over 2,000 years of societal evolution that only went one way. And as we're educating ourselves more, we're finding that we're learning new things about ourselves as people.
People. Which
is what we all are, regardless of what pronouns we prefer. So like,
doesn't matter.
Yeah. So like, I think, that's a perfect way to end the segment. I think we all just need to give each other a little more grace. I know, sometimes I catch myself slipping up and I maybe didn't ask someone their pronouns and I say he or she and I catch like a little bit of that glare. But for me, the grace that I try to extend to that person is like, they might have had the worst day of their life. Like, you never know when someone's had. This is something that I learned from working in the coffee industry and working at 6:30 in the morning. You never know when someone's coming in, starting off the worst day of their life. And
absolutely,
you need to just be patient with people. And so like that goes both ways, right? That goes every way for whatever gender you are, for whatever 100%. Pronouns you prefer. Just give people grace and give them space and try to correct each other politely and try to make corrections politely, because we're only here for a certain amount of time. Why not try to do it right? Just try.
Yeah. All right. I mean, it makes sense to me.
And that's a good way to segue into what we were going to talk about next, because I just got back from a Christian mission trip.
Which is so funny to me.
Why is it funny? It should be heartwarming and inspiring.
Okay, I'm just going to say this, and then I want to hear your story, because I haven't heard it yet.
It should be heartwarming and inspiring, Odie. All right, go.
No, it's funny because you don't act like somebody that would go on mission trips. And I don't mean that you're out there like cursing and doing drugs and like murdering people.
Yeah.
But like when you told me you were going on a Christian mission trip, I was like, oh yeah, I forgot you're technically like, you can
not
see
just
yourself
technically.
A Christian,
I would say I'm a Christian. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's just, it's just funny to me because like, you're just unlike a lot of the other Christians that I've met, which is that's why it's just so funny to me.
Well, let me summarize that with the phrase, Jesus was very punk rock, and I like to think that in walking like Jesus, I'm being punk rock by accepting people and loving my fellow man. Sound familiar? Like,
do you want to know something fun about Jesus?
What?
Can I blow your mind real quick?
No, for the second time?
But this one will actually blow your mind.
Hit me with the Jesus mind blowing.
Okay.
Is it about? I swear to God, if it's about Chris Angel and not Jesus, I'm going to be so mad at you. I'm going to be so mad at you. Go on.
All right. Well, this is a serious one. Okay. How much do you know about biology? Like where chromosomes come from, like from your mom and your dad? Like
I know a good amount. I did well in science in high school. Like I have an X and a Y chromosome. I don't have an extra Y. I'm not aggressive. Go on.
So, and people that are female have which chromosomes?
2X.
2X. And who gives them the X chromosome?
The male.
The mom.
Oh, the mom. Sorry.
So.
I thought you were going to catch me on that. All right.
Jesus was born of a human woman
mm-hmm.
and then God, who is not have a gender. So technically, if it was an immaculate conception and all Jesus got was the X chromosome from his human mom, technically Jesus would be a woman.
Yeah.
Being a man, Jesus is trans.
Whoa. That is interesting, and I like the wordplay there, and I like the thought experiment.
Yeah, it's not true because obviously if it's God,
and
God is an all-powerful being.
Yeah, but that's how you know I'm an unorthodox Christian, because I didn't just start counting Hail Marys and tell you that you're going to hell right there. But that's a thing. That's what I would say about my approach to Christianity and my return to religion and theology was very. I would say it was different than others because I still had a lot of questions, and I still do. And the Israelites were known as the people who warred with God. That's what they were known as. And when I see these examples of people who weren't certain of things but still had faith, right? Because you don't have to be certain to have faith. I don't know that I'm going to land a trick on a skateboard, but I have to have faith in my ability to do it, right? And that's a really specific example for what I'm about to say, but as a Christian, I have faith, but I don't have to it doesn't have to come from a devotion of a level of certainty that literally denies the biological and sociological experience that I'm having or that other people are having, right?
Yeah.
And I personally, I look back, specifically if you look back on the teachings of Jesus and the stories there, he went around and he didn't grab, he didn't go around and go to people the equivalent of today's Joel Osteen, right? Or any of the megachurch pastors. He went around and he found prostitutes and lame people and people who were forgotten by society. And he said, hey, guess what? You're still people. And I love you. And that's where my return to Christianity, I think, really took full form, and that's why, I ended up being on a Christian mission trip. And that's why I pray. That's why I still when I pray, I'm not thinking that I'm directly communicating with God and that he's hearing me right away, or it even I'm not even going to, God gets he a lot in scripture. So I would use he, but I mean, you don't even know God's gender. We don't.
Yeah.
We know that we call
one.
him he, but we call him he, and we're humans. And even in the Old Testament and the New Testament, we're fallible creatures. And the Old Testament and the New Testament, last time I checked, were written by humans. And these are some pretty radical opinions for a Christian to hold, but I kind of don't care, because the other radical opinions that some Christians hold are derogatory. They chastise other fellow humans, and they alienate people. They drive them away from something that could otherwise be helpful in their lives. So when I see that, I'm like, that's not really walking in Christ. That's not walking a path that allows you to love your fellow man. And I can sum up, it sounds funny, but I can sum up my form of Christianity with a meme. Because it was my favorite meme even before I became a Christian in my life, because I didn't become a Christian until I was in my 30s, right? But I love the meme where Jesus is giving the Sermon on the Mount, and someone, they've abbreviated the dialogue, but it says, Jesus says, love everybody. And then there's the same frame, but a person in the crowd goes, but what about the gays? And then Jesus says, I said everybody, motherfucker.
I've seen that.
It's so good. And that's how I feel. That's where I'm at. That's where my heart is. And my heart is in that I'm going to love my fellow man. And I'm sure people who are Christian that know me well would create 1,000,001 hypothetical examples where I might not want to love my fellow man. But I would tell you that not only are those examples hypothetical, they're circumstantial. And
no, you're right.
And if you're someone who is being a Christian, right? As someone who is walking in the way of Christ, you're not being circumstantial. You're not being hypothetical. You're not living in the hypotheticals. You're saying, I woke up today to be a good person, and to make the earth a little bit better so that when we're all going somewhere else, wherever it is, and for me, I'm even going to say possibly even into nothingness, right? Like there might even still be that chance. Like my faith doesn't change the fact that there's a lot of science that tells me I might still just become nothing. But that doesn't stop me from having faith in the power of being a good person and in the power of like doing good in the name of something greater than myself.
I mean, that's not too far off than how some people are anyways, right? Like, and
it isn't,
I'm not,
but the only thing that really gets me, and let me just like really clarify this. So I just went on a Christian mission trip. There's no atheists mission trip. Like there's not another group out there. Like hear me out. There's not another group out there that's going, hey, we're going to go down and just do these really good things and not expect anything else from it. And we're not going to get paid for it. And we're actually going to pour our hearts and money into it. And like,
but I will say there's a lot of times, because I went on a Christian mission trip when I was in high school, and a lot of mission trips that I am aware of are more, and I'm not saying that they're all like this, but the one I went on and the ones that all the churches that I knew went on, where we're going to this country and then going to an area that's isolated, and we're going door to door, and we're going to tell them about Jesus. And if they don't like it, then like, too bad.
Yeah.
Because I'm not kidding. When I went to Brazil, we had a translator, and I was like 16, and I was like with 2 adults, and we were going into people's houses, and even when you could tell they didn't want us there, we were still reading from this pamphlet, being like, well, see this picture of hell? I'm not kidding. The pamphlet had a picture of hell. This is what you're up for. And that's a lot of mission trips.
I am so happy the group I went with doesn't do that, right?
Because did you guys build? Because I know a lot of
we
mission
built a
trips,
wall while we were down there, man. We built
there's
a wall
lot of
for
organizations
a school.
that build.
Yeah. Well, we built a wall for a school while we were down there because they needed it because it broke, right? And this is my second time going. We distributed over 21,000 meals to surrounding communities that needed them, right? And the interaction that I had with people was I said Dios te bendiga, which is God bless you, and I gave them food, right? And that's all it is. Saying God bless you isn't saying if you don't believe in God, you're not blessed. It's saying, hey, this is how I identify. Going back to it, right? I identify that God is blessing you. Like I'm doing this, and it's a thing greater than the both of us, name that I'm going to call God, who you could call Yahweh in the Old Testament. You know, like there are so many different names for God, but like, or like even if like the person across from me is an atheist, and they're like the interconnective energy that unites us all, right? Like that's what I'm saying. I'm saying the same thing you're saying. I'm just saying it's G-O-D instead of the interconnective energy. Like it flows off the tongue a little easier than the interconnective energy that unites us all, right? So like
yeah.
So that's what I'm doing, and then I believe firmly, personally, that like if you're doing it right, you shouldn't have to convince other people to have faith. Like you shouldn't have to evangelize by the mouth because actions do speak louder than words. And so I find that my approach to Christianity is like, I'm just going to be a good person. And if anybody has any questions about it, like I'm going to give them my perspective and what answers I do have to the best of my, capability and point them in the right direction. But that's it. And it's it's a very Eastern approach to what is the most predominant Western religion. But yeah. I think that comes from the fact that I spent many years as a self-declared atheist agnostic, right? And even as an atheist, I came to terms with the fact that, like, you can't be a devout atheist in the same way that even as a Christian, if you told me that you saw God, like literally saw God, I would be like, I don't believe you. And if you were an atheist and you say, I believe, like, it's literally nothing, I would be like, I don't believe that either. Like, you can't. You don't know 100%. And even Richard Dawkins described himself on a scale of atheism of like 1 to 7. The most famous atheist ever said, I'm a 6.7. And it's like, well, what's that 0.3? And he's like, well, I'm just not sure. And it's like, okay, well, that's agnostic.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I don't know if I would classify it as agnostic because I it's not that it's not that I don't know, or I wouldn't say that like those people don't know that there's not something out there.
Mhm.
I think you can just completely just be like, yeah, I don't believe there's anything out there, and whether you present evidence or not,
Yeah.
like I'll look at the evidence, but unless that evidence really shows me that it's true, why would I all of a sudden believe that it's out there?
Yeah. No,
But
if
my
you're
thing about that is I don't think like to be devout in that,
yeah.
like I don't know if there is such a thing as being a devout atheist because I
No,
think
there's not.
like for me, for the last like 10 years, I've classified myself as an atheist and I've had multiple discussions with Christians
Yeah.
and multiple people try to like prove to me that there's a God. And I'm just like, I just, again, because I don't care, like, I don't believe there's something out there. And no matter what you tell me, again, unless you show me a picture of God and it's verified, like, he's got the blue check mark
I
on.
don't think
You show
I
me
don't
God's
think
Twitter
you
profile with
blue
the blue
check
check
marks.
mark, and I'll believe it, all right?
Blue check marks for
Take that,
deities.
atheism.
$8 a pop. Dude, well, yeah, no, and I don't have a picture of God. I don't have a picture of what it looks like when you die. What happens to what, it's funny, like we call it the spirit, right? The human spirit. But that comes from the old term, like the old term for spirit is animus. Because we are animals. We are animated, right? Like, and so for me, having this grounded sense of Christianity where I'm comfortable not knowing. And I'm comfortable saying my faith is in the fact that I'm doing good things and that they will have a good effect. Like I just like considering the thought that like maybe this is all we got. Like, and if it is,
makes it a lot more beautiful.
Yeah, and if it is, like, shouldn't we be focused more on making Earth a little more, and this is using it as an adjective, heavenly, right?
Ooh, I see what you did there.
Shouldn't we focus on making Earth a little more heavenly than, like, not paying attention to Earth and waiting to get somewhere else where hopefully it's better, like, even though we don't know 100%? Because if I told you, like, if I asked someone that they know 100% what happens when they die, and they tell me yes in either direction, I'm not going to believe them. Like, it's something that you don't know until you experience it. So there's a catch-22 there, right? The catch-22 is, in order to know what happens when you die, you have to die. But if you die, you can't tell anybody who's living what happens when you die. It's a catch-22. Like, whether you're Christian or atheist, it's a catch-22. So, like, having validity on either side doesn't make it, like, it doesn't exist. But in my mind, the more I think about it, the more it just makes sense to say, hey, there was this dude Jesus, and he even denounced, some of the Christians who were more judgmental of other people. He told people not to judge other people, to turn your cheek. There are all of these good lessons. I mean, Thomas Jefferson wrote a book, The Teachings of Jesus of Nazareth, where he took a lot of the mythology away from those stories, right? And those ring just as much true. Like, they are so complete in their lessons of brotherly kindness, humanly kindness. Let's not even say brotherly, right? We're talking about gender, right? Of humanly kindness. And I find more of that when I'm aligning myself with the idea of something that connects us all, and when I'm attempting to connect with that itself, right? And I just happen to call that God, and I just happen to call the patterns that emerge from it Christian.
Well,
whether or not it's
everything,
correct.
Everything you've said, you're such in the minority of Christians, but I feel like you're in the minority that should be the majority. Because I'll be the first to admit, and I will not believe in a religion. If there's any religion I identify with, it would be, I would consider myself more spiritual, where I'm like, I meditate and like I like to feel the energy, but like I don't think that there is an all-powerful being controlling that.
Yeah.
But what I was saying about you is that like the way you approach things is, and I hope if you're listening and you're a Christian and anything we've said, bothers you, I would take it as, why does it bother you? Because what you're saying is so true because, and I've said this before, if Jesus existed, the people he hung out with, and you already said it, were not the people that were dressing up in suit and ties and going. They wouldn't be the people that are dressing up in suit and ties and going to church today.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They wouldn't be those people. They wouldn't be the extremely wealthy. It wouldn't be the Joel Osteens.
Mm-hmm.
And the truth of the matter is, if you look at the Bible, and as somebody who was born and raised with the Christian faith, I know the Bible. I know the religion inside and out. I know what the Bible says.
Yeah.
It's amazing how you can read a book and then be like, well, I'm going to do the exact opposite. That would be like reading a book like, what's a good one? Like, that'd be like reading
I'm going to go
Halo
judge
book.
and ostracize and alienate.
It would just, It's like if you read a comic book and at the end of the comic book, Spider-Man dies, and then you were like, you closed it and you went around and told everybody, like, yeah, I read this comic book and Spider-Man lived at the end.
Yeah.
Well, like, you're just wrong. And it's refreshing to hear that hopefully there's people out there like you that approach this, because the biggest thing for me is that Christianity teaches to love everybody, but yet every Christian these days just seems to hate anyone who is not them. You know, that's not what they want them to be.
Yeah.
And that's not what Christianity is supposed to be.
No.
I don't follow the religion, but at least I know that.
Okay, so I love, like, I love the teachings of Jesus Christ, right? Like, I love them. I hate the eschewed versions that are offsets of organized religion. I shouldn't say hate. I supremely dislike. And by supremely dislike, I mean when confronted with them, I will call them out for what they are, which is hypocritical, right? It's ultimately there's this point that I come to with many Christians where I just have to stop talking, because I'm not here to judge or point out other people's flaws or, like being Christ-centered to me doesn't mean that I'm better than anyone. It actually means the opposite, right? And it doesn't mean that I know better than anyone. It means the opposite. It means I am humbled. Yeah. It means that I accept my position as a flawed human being. It means that I'm just going to try to do the best that I can before I'm gone. That's it, man. I mean, one of my favorite thought experiments that I've had in my own personal time, and that I've only shared with a couple of people, is like, I like to toss around these thought experiments for myself. Is like what if this actually, I like proposing this. What if the real trick is that this is the Garden of Eden and we've been ruining it this entire time? What if we never got kicked out of it? What if the walls just expanded and we became self-aware? Like, what if we didn't have to leave? What if what happened was that the Garden of Eden, like, just was Earth the entire time and we didn't know because we felt so isolated and short-sighted? That seems pretty human to me, Or here's another really good one. What if Revelations is just what if it's just a cautionary tale of how not to behave because you don't want to ruin the world and bring about its end? Like, what if that's just a cautionary tale and we should be avoiding the behaviors that lead to that at all costs? Like, I'm not going to read those books and go, this is all of the truth and there's nothing else in the world that can prove it otherwise. When I read, I interpret it differently, and I owe credit to that, to the fact that before I got into Christianity, I had read the Bhagavad Gita. I had read the Tao Te Ching. Like, I had gone through other religions and I know the similarities. I can see the beats that occur in all of them. And I used to say, and there's a little bit of validity to this. It's more of a poetic expression, but I used to say, the first half of every religion teaches you to love everybody. The second half points out all the people you shouldn't.
Yeah.
And I still think that's pretty true. I still come across a lot of people of various religions who have hate in their heart, and it's like, well, that's not a very religious way to behave, is it? That's not a good
really.
Thing to do. Or they allow their confusion to become fear, which is something that all religions preach against. They're like, be wary of fear, be wary of hate. And there are so many people who allow differences between themselves and other people to create fear and hate and other negative emotions, and they make decisions based off that, which sets you off on, you know, the real path to like personal self-destruction and, you know, I would say disenfranchisement of yourself to other people. So really, I guess what I'm getting at is the real religious book everybody should follow based on that example is Dune. Dune is an amazing book by Frank Herbert, and
I can't wait for part 2.
And fear is the mind killer, and that's all you need to know. Like,
I love Dune. Great
me
reference.
too, and I can't wait for part 2.
I know.
Let's wrap this up with what you've been getting into this week. I mean, I could go on and like. I like this discussion, and if you want to know more about the Christian mission trip, I'll tell you about it on another episode because I think it really was great, and the people I went with, they're amazing, and there was a whole spectrum. Like, there was a rainbow spectrum of Christian devotion and belief in the group of 16 people that went down, and it was amazing to see. And it was amazing to see how they all interacted and how they were all able to lift up and work with and support one another. And not only that, to support a community. Yeah.
That's what you want.
It's amazing. I cannot give enough credit to Live to Serve. Like, they are only amazing. Okay, what have you been getting into this week? Hit me with it.
Well, this week was May the 4th and Revenge of the 5th. So to continue my trend from the last episode, I watched the sequel trilogy of Star Wars, so
Nice.
7, 8, 9.
Nice.
Unpopular opinion, but after rewatching 1, 2, all of the Clone Wars, 3, all of Bad Batch, Rebels, Rogue One, 4, 5, 6, all of Mandalorian, all of Book of Boba Fett.
Nice.
I've watched every Star Wars thing there is.
Okay.
And then I watched 7, 8, 9.
Okay.
Look, this is going to be unpopular opinion.
Hit me with it.
And nobody hates Star Wars like Star Wars fans.
I love unpopular opinions.
I have come around on the sequel trilogy a lot. I don't think it's perfect. I don't even think it's that good. I think that if you take it for what we got, which is, at the end of the day, it is the return of Palpatine. And I know that when they came out, we didn't know Palpatine was going to come back because somehow Palpatine returned. But now that we have all of this stuff that shows it was in the works already, and look, again, I'm not saying that this is what we wanted or what we should have gotten, but this is the Star Wars that we have. This is what we have. We're not going to get a new sequel trilogy. You know what I mean? You're laughing, but it's true.
It's what I made for dinner, so eat it.
Well, I mean, it kind of, right? Like, here's the thing. If you
keep going,
I'm just, my thing is that now that the sequel trilogy is come and gone, and people want it to be remade, but we can't. Carrie Fisher is dead. Harrison Ford would rather jump off a cliff than go back to Star Wars. And Mark Hamill's done. Like, they all moved on, and that's fine.
Okay.
But now that we know and we have information through The Mandalorian that, like, cloning of force-sensitive people has always been a thing. If you look at the whole 9 movies and everything in between, from the perspective of Palpatine, right? So this is what I'm trying to tell Star Wars fans, because I talked to somebody else about this.
I love that this is a video essay now. Go. Keep going.
But like, if you look at all of them from the perspective of Palpatine, and I could go, like I said, Star Wars episode. We're going to do one. This isn't the Star Wars episode. We're going to do one eventually.
This is the Star Wars episode. Go.
So people don't know this, but like, he didn't kill Darth Plagueis, who he mentions in episode 3. Have you heard the tale of Darth Plagueis the Wise?
Yeah. Okay.
He didn't kill him. He kills him between episodes 1 and 2.
Okay.
So, and not a lot of people know that that's something that's like not really covered in any media. You have to like look into it, read some prequel stuff and everything.
Okay.
But take that information. He killed Darth Plagueis after learning the secrets of how to cheat death.
Yeah.
He knew how to cheat death, just didn't know how to make it. Like, he knew what to do, just couldn't make it happen.
Okay.
Then he lied to Anakin and was like, have you ever heard the story about this Dark Lord who literally died, I don't know, 5 years ago?
Yeah.
Of course you haven't. Oh, the Jedi lied to you? It's all about him manipulating everybody. And we know that now up until episode 6.
Yeah.
But then he cheated. Palpatine cheated. And now 7, 8, 9 was him taking advantage of Kylo Ren. And again, I'm not saying it's perfect, but it's kind of interesting when you look at it from the perspective of Palpatine, where this man was so desperate for absolute power.
Yeah.
He did anything and everything he could, including letting himself get deformed by Mace Windu just to try to get Anakin to kill him to turn to the dark side.
Okay.
He would do anything in order to have absolute power.
Yeah.
And when you look at it through that perspective, it does make sense that he would come back. Because he knew how to cheat death. We knew he knew how to cheat death.
Yeah.
We just didn't know how he knew how to do it.
Okay.
So anyways,
Not
my
bad.
point to this is that I rewatched the sequel trilogy. I love Episode 8. I think The Last Jedi is a great Star Wars movie. I really enjoy it.
Hard agree.
I think that Star Wars isn't perfect, but I like Star Wars, and I just like Star Wars. I just like it.
Okay.
And I can enjoy it no matter how many people tell me I shouldn't. I just enjoy it. It's just fun.
My only counterpoint, and I'm
for
glad
it.
you highlighted it, is that somehow Palpatine is back is my least favorite line in
Yes.
all of cinema. Like,
It does. I mean, yeah,
So,
they should have done that a lot better.
let me take what you said and take the part that I agree with and highlight that, like, had they been written better and had it been set up better, yes, 7, 8, and 9 would be great. Is it what we have? Sure. Was it well done? Absolutely not. I think that the writing fails on many fronts. I think that the structure of each plot of all of those movies individually was a hot mess, and it's because not of Star Wars. It's not because of the universe and the world building and everything that gave it that feel in the first place and set everything up. It's because of the execution on Hollywood's end. So, like, I'm not mad at Star Wars. You know, I just don't like the 3 films that they made, and that's fine. Like, I really don't like Episode 9. Like, I remember I couldn't even get through it, man. When I got to
I just
somehow
recently
Palpatine's
rewatched
back,
it.
I was like, all right, I'm almost done with this. And then I was like, all right, it's too much.
You know what would have made it really good? And I'll end my little segment with this because I know we were like wrapping it up and I went on a Star Wars tangent. But you know what would have made it? Would have made Episode 9 incredibly, like, so much better is that at the end of Episode 8,
They kiss.
we heard Palpatine's transmission.
Oh, yeah.
And then at the start of Episode 9, it was them doing that mission at the beginning.
Yep.
They land back down, and then they're like, we got this transmission from Palpatine.
Yeah.
We don't know how he's back, but he's back. And that would have been better, because then we would have known going out of Episode 8 to be like, holy shit, wait, Palpatine? What? That isn't... I thought he... And then we find out he was Snoke and everything. That would have been better. But just to start Episode 9 with being like, Palpatine's back, because we heard a transmission.
Yep. Do you know how Palpatine came back?
Yes.
I do. He had 1 million bank accounts with $1 in them.
You know... And he could afford to clone himself.
He could afford to
all that
clone
interest.
himself because of the interest. It's because of the interest. Okay.
Music-wise, I have just been listening to a lot of Ghost because we have our concert coming up.
Nice.
I basically haven't really consumed a whole lot of new stuff.
You're in a
'cause
cult.
Trying to be careful about how much I consume. But what about you? What have you been been watching, listening to?
I have not been watching anything because I have been in the Dominican Republic for a week. So there was,
yeah.
I mean, I was on a compound
Obviously.
with, like, running water was the
podcasts?
luxury, right? So that was good. I actually was unplugged, so I don't have much. Here's what I will say. Ryan Beatty has a new album out called Calico, and I
Okay.
listened to that a lot while I was down in the
Wait.
Dominican Republic. He, if those are his pronouns, is amazing. I really like the whole album Calico. Like, I've listened to it front to back probably a good dozen times now. It's really soft. It's not the music that you would expect me to be listening to if you know me well. You know, I'm usually
adding it right now.
Yeah, I'm usually like, you know, hip hop, metal, everything but soft, and I've listened to it. He's a great singer-songwriter. There's a lot of different influences on the album, and it feels good all the way through, man. But I will
I'm gonna
tell
have to
you
give that
that
a
next
listen.
week I will be completely prepared to have a spoiler segment and to talk about Guardians of the Galaxy 3, which I am going to go see right now.
Oh, let me know how it is, because I am not going to see. I might see it before
You
next
should go
episode, then.
see it just so we can talk about it.
All right, I'll
Go
see it.
see
I had
it
the
this
AMC
week so
pass,
that at the end of next week we can talk about it.
All right, deal. I'll go see it I'll go see like an early showing one day this week because I have a big announcement on the next episode. That's trying to bait people into the next episode.
I'm gonna play dramatic music there, and then the credits. Here, do it again, and I'm gonna gasp, and then dramatic music, and then credits. Ready?
Okay.
All right,
Ready?
say it.
I have a big announcement for next episode.
That's it. That's the end of the episode. Somehow, Palpatine's back. Is that your announcement? Do you have 1,000 bank accounts? Is that what's up?
It should be